Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome in. Glad that you've joined us today on this, the fourth day of March, as we are going to be reading today in our private reading time, Mark chapter 9. Just a couple of quick thoughts to prime the pump, as it were, before you jump into this particular chapter. It's the chapter in the Gospel of Mark that talks about the transfiguration of Christ. And I have to tell you that, I've read quite a bit about the transfiguration and of course, reading this account again fresh this morning in preparation for these few moments together, it occurs to me that no matter how much I try to read about this particular story, I come away with more questions than I do answers. I don't think necessarily that that's a bad thing. I don't think that this story is recorded for us so that we can satisfy all of our imaginations and all of our questions and all of our curiosities. I don't think that's why it's written. And sometimes that's why I want it to be written. Sometimes I want it to be written so that I can have this picture of exactly what it looked like and have all my questions answered. But the reason it was written is because it is a beautiful and perfect object lesson of something that the apostles themselves needed to hear. It's something that the early church needed to hear, and something that's still important for us today. We do know, what we do know is more important than what we don't know. And what we do know is that he's met there by the symbol of the law and the symbol of the prophets. So many times throughout Scripture, we hear that phrase, the law and the prophets, the law and the prophets. In fact, Jesus himself in Luke 23, in Luke 24, Jesus himself would speak with the travelers on the road to Emmaus, and he would start with Moses and the prophets and explain all things about himself. What that means is the law and the prophets is kind of this metonymy of the entirety of Scripture up to the point of Jesus. And the law and the prophets, of course, rightly so, to the ancient Jews and to the Christian today, deserves a great deal of respect. It is for our teaching, we're told. It is for our understanding. And Jesus is the fulfillment of that. God speaks from heaven and he says, yes, you have the law and it's important. Yes, you have the prophets and it's important, but this is my son. This is my son. And you are to hear him. This is putting Jesus in a superior place over the law and the prophets. This is when Jesus proclaimed that the law and the prophets teach of me, speak of me, point towards me. That's why it's there, because Jesus is the fruition of the law and the prophets. What a powerful image it is. Hear him, God says, and we would be wise today to do that as well. He no more comes down from the mountain than there is another controversy in which he is embroiled, and this is the controversy that really seems to have all the trappings about an evil spirit that can't be brought under subjection by the disciples. But really, it's about belief. It's really a story about belief. And the story of belief is a very interesting and pointed one between Jesus and the Father, where he says, what do you mean if I can? What do you mean if I can? Everything's possible to the one who believes. And then the answer that comes back in verse 24 is one of the most beautiful answers, that one of the most honest and heartfelt, one of the most sincere responses, and something that honestly could be a mantra for my life and probably a mantra for your life. Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief. I want to believe, I do believe, I try to believe, I strive to believe, I have belief, and yet it's weak, and yet it's incomplete, and yet there are moments it falls down on me, and I need to have a belief that's stronger than the belief I have today, and help me to do that. What an honest and straightforward statement by this brave and courageous man, and in doing so, he has now for thousands of years given us voice to what we so often feel. Don't you feel that sometimes? I do believe, but I doubt. I do believe, but I need to believe stronger. And he said it so beautifully. I believe. Help my unbelief. From here, Jesus speaks of, again, his own death. And Jesus is ready to talk to them about very serious things. Jesus is ready to talk to them about very profound and important things. My death and what my death means and why I came. And they're too busy arguing about who's greatest. And I think to myself, isn't that just like people? Isn't that just like people? Isn't that the church today? Isn't that the church throughout history? Isn't that, unfortunately, the church 1,000 years from now if Christ delays his coming? Because when Jesus is trying to talk to us about the really most important central things, we're arguing amongst ourselves about the silliness. And Jesus faced it in his own earthly ministry, and Jesus through his church continues to face it today. And Jesus settles it then in the same way that we can settle so many of those today, by putting a little child in the midst, by stepping back and looking at the beautiful example of a little child and all the qualities that he or she possesses and all the things that he brings to the table. And Jesus uses this as an object lesson to say, get out of yourselves. Stop arguing about silly, stupid things. It's not about being great. It's about being a child. It's about being honest and sincere and open and curious and filled with awe and filled with wonder and ready to believe and happy to follow. That child not only is something to be held up as an example, it's not only an example for us to strive for, but it is a person to protect. It's a person to guard. Better that a millstone would be hung around the neck and thrown in the sea than to harm one of these little ones. Our children are deserving of our protection. All children are deserving of our care. And we live in a world where many children are not cared for. And that should be a clarion call to the church today to say, not only should these never be harmed, but we in the church must be actively involved in protecting and caring for them. Lots of things to think about in this chapter. I hope that you enjoy your reading this morning, and we'll look forward to seeing you back in here tomorrow for a Friday wrap-up of the week. Have a great day.